descent of the Ganges. Apparently they had they would journey during the day and he'd tell stories at night, something like that. They would ask and he would narrate. And so we're about to reach the ashram of Gota Marishi, and there we see Ahalya paying her obeisances at the feet, literally at the feet of Ram. And that's in the direction of the kingdom of Videha. Kingdom of Videha is the kingdom where Janak Maharaj resides. Here's a little background on the Janak name. Janak was such a celebrated king that successive generations of kings, they had a name, but they were also called Janak. It became like a family name, whatever their name was. So they had both names. Their name, this comes up specifically in relation to Krishna's pastimes. There was a king in Mithila that Krishna visited. His name was Bahulashva, but he's also sometimes directly in the Bhagavatam called Jennika. So I got confused, wait a minute. But that's the explanation. So Gautama's ashram has some history, and Ahalya has some history. According to the history, she was created directly by Lord Brahma as being a flawless personality in beauty and every other feature. And Brahma had yet decided who she should marry. So for the time being, Brahma had her reside at the ashram of Gautama. And Indra, this is Indra's fascination with Ahalya, he thought for sure that he would be given Ahalya to marry. But when that didn't happen, he hadn't given up his fascination for Ahalya. But Brahma saw she was serving Gautama so nicely, and there was an appreciation for one another. And so it was pronounced by Brahma that Ahalya would marry Gautama. And so she married Gautama. But Indra hadn't given up his fascination for her. So sometime after their marriage, you know the story, Indra came in disguise as much as he could, looking just like Gautama. So there's Indra looking just like Gautama, because Gautama had gone for his bathing and midday duties, etc. And while he was gone, here comes imitation Gautama. And he seduced Ahalya, and she said, "You better leave quickly because my husband comes back, and if he comes back, you're finished." So he tried to scurry away, but as he was scurrying away, bumped into Gautama. Uh-oh. And Gautama, being the rishi that he was, he immediately understood the situation, and he cursed him. Where did he curse him? What happened? Yeah, pretty heavy curse. "Oh, lusty fool, may your testicles immediately fall off." So that's what happened. And according to the description here, he went to the Pitris, and the Pitris castrated a ram and grafted its testicles onto Indra's body. Whew. Pretty lusty fellow. And Ahalya, Gautama knew that she knew she was also attracted to Indra, and she knew that Indra was not Gautama. So he cursed her Now there's different versions of Ramayana, but the standard one is you become a stone. You sit here and like a stone until Lord Ram comes, and when Lord Ram comes and places his foot on you, then you can be relieved of this curse. And it was a long time waiting for her to come. So Bharadraj Rishi's, Gotama Rishi's son, Shatananda, knew this curse. So it's Shatananda that had requested Vishwamitra, bring Ram to touch the stone so my mother can be relieved from this curse. And that's what happened. There's the stone, and Ram, according to Vishwamitra's instructions, placed his foot on the stone, and Ahalya was freed from that curse. And when Ahalya was freed from the curse, Gotama came back from wherever he went, and he again was reunited with Ahalya. She was considered corrected, purified, and now accepted by him. So that's what all of this up here, that's the demigods viewing the situation. Ahalya is with Gotama again, and there's the happy reunion after Ram's visit. There's Ram, Lakshman, and Ahalya. Yeah. And there's Gotama coming back from the mountains wherever he was doing some austerities. Ram and Lakshman are received. Over here is Shatananda and the king, King Janak, coming to greet because they hear they're coming, and look at their greeting. And there's Ram, Lakshman, and Vishwamitra, along with some ministers. A very nice, proper, nice wedding, reception. Here's a nice photograph of the palace of King Janak, at least how it's looking today. And the colors look slightly different, but this is another version here. It's the same structure. Palace of King Janak. When they get together, there's this natural situation that happens when important persons come together. Shatananda knows Vishwamitra intimately well. He was Gotama's son, but he also spent substantial time with Vishwamitra. He knows his whole history. So Shatananda is narrating to the royal family the history of Vishwamitra, which we've already gone over. And then hearing all of this, King Janak narrates the story of Sita and the bow. Now this is an interesting image. There's Sita playing with the bow. But one of the reasons, there's multiple reasons, and there's different versions of Ramayana, but Janak wanted the most qualified person to marry his daughter. Now, when she was married, she was 9. But there were kings and princes that wanted to marry her. So he made an arrangement that they had to lift and string Lord Shiva's bow. We're going to hear the history of the bow. But when Sita was a little girl, there's different versions, but she was given some domestic duties for training. One of those domestic duties for training was cleaning some portions of the palace. So one of the portions of the palace that she was cleaning was where the bow was kept. Now there's different versions of Ramayana. Then some say it took 100 men, some say it took 300 men, some say it took 500 men to move the bow. But Sita, when cleaning, she with one hand lift the bow and get a dusting cloth and clean underneath the bow and put it back. And another version says, one time the girls were playing in the garden and a ball got stuck. They were trying to get the ball unstuck, and Sita ran inside, got the bow, reached up, got the ball unstuck from in a tree or something, and then put the bow back. And there's other versions. So, for her, lifting the bow was nothing. And Janak realized we can't have Sita marry somebody that's less strong than her. So at least they have to be able to lift the bow and string the bow. There's other versions. But he wanted it. He knew that she was very special, and he knew that she was very special by the way in which she appeared. And so he narrates the history of the bow this way. The bow, it was the bow of Lord Shiva. The bow of Lord Shiva, there was simultaneously a bow of Vishnu that was created by Vishwakarma, because the demigods wanted to see who was more powerful. So they had Vishwakarma create bows. And the way the exchange went, Lord Vishnu demonstrated, at least the demigods ruled, Vishnu was more powerful. So Lord Shiva was upset. So he gave his bow to the Devatas. And the Devatas gave the bow to an ancestor of the king of Mithila named Devarata. And it remained in the care of the family line, Ikshvaku line, up to Janaka's time. And every day, the bow was worshipped. The bow of Lord Shiva was worshipped with sandal paste, flowers, etc. And he also let them know that the bow of Lord Shiva the bow of Vishnu is with Parshuram. And we're going, that comes later. He then tells the story of what happened here, Sita's birth. And we all know the story of Sita's birth. He's plowing a field for the purpose of preparing for a yajna. And he's plowing in the field and he finds a little girl in a box, in a golden box that comes out of the ground. And he brings that golden box to his wife and said, we've been very much wanting a daughter. Here she is. Let's call her Sita. Because Sita means born, or means a furrow of a plow, from a plow. So that was her name. And we heard Vedavati wanted to be born not from a mother's womb, but from an elevated personality as their daughter. So there she is, Sita. Sita's appearance. This is a photograph of the place, and the place is called Sita Marhi. It's the place of birth of Srimati Sita. And here's another photograph of what's inside that gate. It's a very simple village, but where Janaka was doing his plowing in the field and Sita appeared. So after so many exchanges back and forth, Vishwamitra explained one of the purposes of his coming was to show the bow of Lord Shiva to Ram and see if Ram could lift it. And would that be all right with King Janak? And knowing Vishwamitra, as he knew Vishwamitra, he could read between the lines, and he could understand that Lord Ram was an exceptional personality. And so the bow was brought out by 100, 300, or 500 men. And Ram looks at the bow. He looks up at Vishwamitra without saying a word, but the look is to say, is it okay? Vishwamitra, you see, is giving his blessings. It's okay. You can pick up the bow. And he tests the weight of the bow with both hands, as you see. There's other drawings of the same. There's Vishwamitra, there's King Janak, there's Lakshmana, there's the bow. And another nice painting. The bow looks kind of skinny here, but you get the idea. And the cart, there's the cart for the bow, carried in wheels. And Vishwamitra, King Janak, look at little Sita. She's a 9-year-old girl holding on to daddy. And with no ease, with ease, Ram not only lifts the bow and strings the bow, but he breaks the bow. Here's a really beautiful painting, high resolution. I hope you can see it nicely. There's Sita. She looks a little older than that other picture, holding the garland. There's King Janak. Now, Janak, remember, he's one of the 12 Mahajans. He's a very special personality. There's Vishwamitra, there's Lakshman, and then all the other personalities watching. Somewhere there must be Sita's sister. And sure enough, he breaks the bow. And the Bhagavatam, this is a BBT painting, he breaks the bow with such power that this cracking sound knocks people over. Very powerful bow, very powerful 12-year-old boy. And there's Sita waiting with the garland. And King Janaka is very happy because he wanted a qualified person to marry his daughter, and that was the qualification. He met the qualification. And another kind of creative painting. The bow looked kind of skinny, and Ram looked pretty eager to become married to Sita. And then here's another very detailed, beautiful painting where there's the garland giving ceremony, and Sita's mother, King Janak, various sages here and there, and the acknowledgement that they will be one day married, soon married, is discussed. Here's a little lotus flower. Isn't that nice? And not only that, Sita and Ram, but Vishwamitra, matchmaker Vishwamitra, said to King Janak, I have a suggestion. You have a younger daughter. Why doesn't your younger daughter marry Lakshman? And not only that, you have a brother. Your brother's name is Kushadwaj. And Kushadwaj has 2 daughters. We can make a 4-way marriage. And he looked at he said, I like it. Let me go speak to my brother. His brother lived in a nearby place, so he went to speak to his brother. His brother really liked the idea. Then Ram is very clear. There's a whole long commentary about his words, but his words are, I can't do anything without the blessing and permission of my father. He's very bound to his father and his father's word. And so an envoy is sent, and they don't go in the main road, they take a shortcut. They get there very quickly, and the Dasarath doesn't know what to expect because he sent his son to kill some demons, and here comes an envoy. So what does that mean? But when they say, phew, because in the chronology of all of this, just when Vishwamitra came and asked for Ram to come with him, just when he was doing that, he was thinking about his 12-year-old son's marriage. And then here comes Vishwamitra. Little did he know that Vishwamitra is going to take care of that problem for him. So he's really happy. And Vishishta comes, and that's everybody. It's a big party. And they go on the main road, takes a long time. But they get there. And when they get there, there's all the rituals and ceremonies, and wedding descriptions are really long and dragged out. And here it is. There's the 4 couples circumambulating the fire. Here's another nice painting of the same thing. And it tells who married whom. Bharata married Mandavi, and Shatrughna married Shrutakirti. And Lakshman married the very faithful and loving sister, Urmila. One of the nicest descriptions, because when people ask this question, what's your favorite personality? I really like Urmila. I mean, not Urmila Mataji, our ISKCON teacher, but the personality that's Sita's sister as far as Ramayana. What you'll hear when we get there, but she's really a special personality. Okay, so here's a photograph of the mandap where the wedding took place, at least what the modern structure is there, with a little wire running from electrical tower somewhere. And it's where there's Sita's wedding, but all 4 were married here. And here's another photograph of the same place from another angle. And that's the end of the Vishwamitra story, because he then asks permission after the marriage is over, before everyone starts journeying back to where they came from, Ayodhya, etc. He is now in the perfected stage or mature stage of bhakti, with a very profound understanding of Ram from his association and service with Ram. Because remember, he is this elevated person, and he can understand things that ordinary persons don't have the capacity to understand. He has the capacity to understand, and he's moved from this, part 2 and part 3. He moved from being a Brahma Rishi to a pure devotee in steps. It was a long journey to get to where he got to, but we don't hear about him after this wedding. He goes to perfect or to continue his practices. And one might say, if he understands who Ram is, why does he want to go somewhere? Just be where Ram is. Go back with him to Ayodhya, be with the good association of Vishishta. But it's Vishwamitra. He's going to go do austerity somewhere and have his mind completely fixed upon Lord Ramachandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there must be some service that he does. We don't hear what that is. But it's a profile of, it's not the same, but there's some similarities to Dhruva, starting from a position of materialistic, Sakam Bhakti or Sakama, and going to Nishkama. Through the process obviously is different, but the stages there's some similarity up to the stage of perfection. You don't exactly get this when you just read Ramayana, but the focus goes to the personalities of Ramayana. The thread comes out. And then that thread is woven with other threads, and you get a tapestry called Ramayana. And so we're going to go on now to, this is, everyone goes back to Ayodhya. Another nice photograph of Ayodhya today. And, the end. So now we're going to speak about Vali and Sugriva, the next pair of personalities. They're brothers because they have the same mother, although they have different fathers. Vali and Sugriva. Vali is the elder of the two, and he takes the position of being the king of the monkeys. And his father is Indra. And he's Sugriva's elder brother. So this comes right from the internet. The caption on the internet that's Vali. So that's an artist rendering of Vali. Here's another artist rendering of Vali. Look pretty intense. And the younger brother is Sugriva. And Sugriva's father is Surya. And from their early days, Sugriva, as in the role of the younger brother, because when in Vedic culture, the younger brother serves the older brother, and he was very happy to serve the older brother. We heard earlier how the strength of Vali, I'm sure you remember, but it's nice to hear pastimes of Lord Ramachandra hundreds and hundreds of times. So here's the painting where when you see that thing there, that's Pushpaka Vimana, and Ravana has come because he heard Vali is very powerful. He comes before the Vanaras with a desire to have combat. And he's very explicit with Vali. So he's met by Tara and Sugriva, and they gesture to a pile of bones over there. The people that came before you and wanted to do something like this, that's what happened to them. If you want, you can end up like that too. That's no problem. Vali is very powerful, but he's not here right now. So you have two choices. You can wait, and he'll be back shortly, or you can go to the southern sea, because that's where he is right now. He travels really fast, but you have your nice Pushpaka Vimana. You can travel there fast too. And he's doing his morning duties. And he couldn't wait. So he went to find him. And you remember what happened? What happened was he snuck up behind him, and Vali saw him sneaking up, but he didn't. He was doing his religious duties. So he kept doing his religious duties, tucked him under his armpit, traveled to the Eastern Sea, traveled to the Western Sea, traveled to the Himalayas, came back and set him down and said, "Oh, who are you and what can I do for you?" And Ravana expressed how astonished and impressed his speed and his strength and everything, and said, you make a good friendship. So they made friends. Yeah. Okay. Now that's Vali was very, very strong. And Sugriva was very obedient to and respectful towards his elder brother. And there was, with good reason. He was a very qualified person, and he offered him all respect. Now, one day, there was a demon named Mayavi that came to town, came to Kishkinda. And there's different descriptions. One description says that Mayavi, we heard this already, Mayavi and Dundubi were brothers, and they were sons of who? Mayadanava, very good. Mayadanava. There's another description in Valmiki Ramayana, as that one is in Valmiki Ramayana, saying that Dundubi was the son, Mayavi was the son of Dundubi. In any case, that discrepancy, I don't know what to do with it. But he came to challenge Vali. And that apparently there was some discrepancy over a woman, believe it or not. And so he challenged him. In the dead of night, he came and he screamed, "Come on out and fight." Huh. Don't challenge Vali like that. He'll come out and fight. So not only Vali came, but Vali and Sugriva came charging out of Kishkinda. Mayavi saw them coming. They were so big. He ran. He ran and ran and ran. And as you see from this little drawing here, he entered into a cave, making a growling sound. And Vali said, "I'm going to go in the cave and deal with him. So you just wait outside until I come out." And so he waited outside. And he waited outside. And he waited outside. He waited outside for 1 whole year. And he didn't come out. But he was very faithful. He must have gotten hungry. But he just waited there. And then he heard this loud sound coming from the cave. Then he saw a stream of blood flowing from the tunnel or the entrance of the cave. And so he decided that it doesn't say how he deduced it, but it must be that Vali was killed and he didn't want this demon to harm anybody. And so he covered up the entrance to the tunnel with a giant boulder and came back to Kishkinda with the bad news. My brother and your king has been killed. Well, the ministers of the kingdom wanted a king. So they pleaded with him, "Sugriva, you become the next king." He didn't want to do that. But they persuaded him because they have to have a king. And so he was anointed the king, but lo and behold, Vali came from the cave. And he was really angry. And he very severely chastised Sugriva with harsh words. Sugriva was saying, "Brother, how wonderful. We thought you were gone. And I'll please take the throne. And I can serve you as we've always done together. How wonderful." But Vali wasn't going to take it like that. He banished Sugriva, and he physically took away his wife as well. And not only that, but he started pursuing him here and there, wherever he went throughout the whole, we heard already, right? He knew all around the whole, not just Earth planet, but the whole cosmology. He knew of places that just don't exist on the surface of the globe. Sugriva went to a lot of places. And Vali pursued him and pursued him and pursued him. And there was one place that he wouldn't go. And that's where he went. That one place where he wouldn't go is where Dundubi, different than Mayavi, but there's a big bull demon, came into town. And here's everybody's running to get away from this big bull demon. But the bull demon wanted to have a fight with Vali. So Vali had a big fight with him and he defeated him. And as he defeated him, he tossed him in the air some far distance. And as he was flying through the air, some blood from Dundubi's body fell on Sage Matunga's ashram. And Sage Matanga, being a rishi, he understood what the cause of that was. It was Vali. And so here's a painting that probably you won't be able to see so well. Here's the bull demon. There's Sage Matanga. There's Vali tossing him and comes in for a crash landing. So, yeah. There is a photograph of Rishamukh Mountain. He gave a curse that if you come anywhere within a certain vicinity of Rishamukh Mountain, you'll instantly die. And so he stayed away. And for that reason, that's where Sugriva went. He went to Rishamukh Mountain, knowing that Vali wouldn't go there. So here's, looks like Sage Matanga. And here's looks like Ram and Lakshman. Looks like, not sure. There's Vanaras. In any case, that's where he settled. And that's where Ram found him. So we're focused on Vali and Sugriva. And Sugriva was the person who Virada recommended that Ram make friendship with. And so Ram made friendship with him when he found Sugriva. And together, the decision was made. We heard all this already. After testing Ram's prowess, Sugriva was told to go challenge Vali. So there he is outside Kishkinda, screaming, "Come on out for a fight." I like this painting. They're hiding behind trees. There's Ram. There's Lakshmana with his leg draped around the tree. And there's Hanuman behind another tree. And Sugriva's letting out a mighty roar. Vali hears, "What?" So he comes and engages in combat with his brother. And we heard he's got this golden necklace, and this golden necklace given to him by Indra has the power of taking half of the power from any combatant to him. So he wins every time. Just keep that pendant on or necklace. And so as they're fighting and fighting, Vali is trouncing Sugriva. And they shifted position. There's Ram, and then there's Hanuman, and there's Lakshman, but they're still behind trees. And Sugriva has to run for his life. And you have this document that says why he didn't fire. He says later, "I didn't fire the arrow because I couldn't tell the difference between you two." One difference is Vali has a pendant. It has a necklace. That's just one. Anyway, but you have a whole document that explains all of this, right? I hope you've taken a look at it. Several reasons given why he said what could have appeared to be, to some persons who read this, ask the question, did he tell a lie? Because he doesn't tell a lie. He upholds the truth. But if he said he's omniscient, and how could he not, and et cetera, et cetera. So you can read that at your leisure rather than going into it. It's some very interesting points. So there's the garland. a special way of distinguishing between the two brothers. And Lakshman, as he is often asked to do something, he is to get the garland or a vine and place it around Sugriva's neck, who has to bow down to receive the garland. And so he's made up for his offense, the previous offense of not respecting Lakshman. So now he's respecting Lakshman inadvertently. Then he's supposed to go back and, scream again and get Vali to come out again. And so Vali hears his brother screaming again. So this is one of those paintings that tells many parts. Down here, we're going to see a highlight. This is Tara objecting to Vali, saying, please don't go. Please don't go. Here's Ram and Lakshman hiding behind a tree. Here's Sugriva jumping and making a big noise. And her reasoning is that why would he come back so quickly? He just got licked. He got whipped bad. Now he's coming back. What does that tell you? There's something behind him that's more than him. And Angada, our son, did some spying work. And he found out that he's made an allegiance, a friendship with Ram. And you know who Ram is. Ram is really powerful. So behind him is Ram. That's what's giving him the courage to come forward again. My good husband, don't go out and fight again. Even better, besides don't go out and fight, just make friendship with Sugriva. And, the problem is over. So he is too passionate, and he normally respects the good advice of his good wife, and she always gives good advice. He says this later, but he's got to run out and do battle. So he goes out to do battle, and there it is. There she's speaking to him. That little circle is blow up of this part. So he gets shot in the chest with an arrow. The battle goes on between the two, and it's looking like he's going to win again. And Ram says, now is the time, and he shoots him. And we're going to hear, I promised you, so we're going to fulfill that promise. Vali is not only killed, Vali is shocked, because he's heard of Ram, and he's heard the virtue of Ram, but now he is criticizing him for his for what he's just done. And then after hearing the criticism, Ram is going to then instruct Vali. So let's hear, there's something like 12 objections of Vali. Let's hear what those are and how Ram refutes. It's a good section, 2 chapters of Kishkinda Kanda. For starters, Ram says, oh, Vali, it seems that with the deterioration of the body, even the intelligence gets deteriorated. You're accusing me of immorality without understanding the intricacies of Dharma. So here's his criticisms or objections, 1 through 12. What merit is there in killing someone who is not facing you? You shot me from behind a tree. Why did you do that? I mean, many people reading Ramayana ask that question. Why did you do that? You could have just stood out where I could at least see you, but you're hiding. Why did you do that? And I was in combat with someone else. So why did you do it while I was in combat with someone else? And Ram's answer, these are not verbatim, this is making it simple. Indra gave benediction, and I don't go against the benedictions of the demigods. And that benediction, apparently, that was given by Indra was sanctioned by Brahma. So Ram is going to honor Brahma and Indra's benedictions. He's not going to violate them. In other words, Ram could overstep whatever any necklace can do. But if he did that, he'd be violating what the demigods had said. So he did it the way that he did it for that reason. If he was in direct combat with Vali, Vali would lose and he'd be violating the demigods. So he's not going to violate the demigods. That's why he was hiding, as opposed to direct combat. And why was it done when I was in combat with someone else? I'm upholding my pledge to Sugriva. You've usurped his wife. And that's punishable. So his next objection is my brother's the wrongdoer. You know what my brother did to me? So, whoops. So you punished the incorrect wrongdoer. And now these aren't Ram's words. It's summarizing his words. His words are very beautiful and elegant. Your wrongdoing is evident. Exiling your son-like younger brother and cohabiting with his wife. You're the wrongdoer. Oh, Vali. So then, next objection. Now, he doesn't go one by one. He says a whole string of things and Ram hears them out and then responds. In your city or country, I did no misdeed. Or Kishkinda is not in your jurisdiction. So apparently if you do something in someone's home territory, then you're punishable. And if it's something that's somewhere else, something else, you have no business. And Ram explains, I'm a member of the Ikshvaku dynasty, and the Ikshvaku dynasty has jurisdiction over the whole earth. And you punish me, whom free from any guilt. I'm innocent. We already covered that one. You're guilty. Illicit connection with your younger brother's wife is punishable. Particularly, you're a king and a leader. This kind of behavior is exacerbated because of your position. You're to be punished. Now, he's not acknowledging that. I mean, until the end, that's not the position that he's been in. So we don't have a dispute of land, gold, or silver between us. So that can be a reason why people may have some combat. But Ram explains, I'm just following dharmic duty. When I left Ayodhya, Bharata and I had an agreement. He will rule over the citizens in the cities and towns, while I will rule over the forest dwellers under his jurisdiction. It's my duty. I'm following Dharma. You're saying I'm not. I'm following Dharma. Your primary aspiration is to kill without probing into good or bad. Well, I know the codes of Dharma, and indirectly, I'm super soul. So super soul knows what's good and bad. Oh, thank you. He's not done yet. He's got to say some more. How are you going to face the criticism of scholars and holy people? And the answer is, I'm acting within scripture. I haven't acted whimsically. I followed our predecessor kings. I've abided by duty, and duty that's indicated in scripture. Unnecessary killers are destined for hell. Well, it's not an unnecessary killing. It's the duty of a king to punish sinners who cohabit with their younger brother's wife. Killing such a sinner does not accrue sin. Kshatriyas do not accrue sin when they carry out dharma in a proper manner, following the codes of dharma. And here's 3. You're killing an animal, an herbivore animal. And my skin or flesh is useless for human use. And 5 kinds of 5 nailed animals are unfit for human use. So what does Ram say? Even you consider yourself an animal. And according to Dharma, hunters may kill an animal from behind a tree. Here's another one, 13. I would have brought back Maithili to you in one day. Maithili is Sita. And his reply, Sugriva is like Lakshmana to me. We mutually agreed to help each other recover our wives from our aggressors. Sugriva's mandate is to find Maithili, not bring her to me. No, he's powerful. He's already demonstrated. He's more powerful than Ravana. It's a piece of cake for me. I just go to Lanka. I can move fast. You see how fast I can travel, and I can whoop them and take Sita and bring her back. Business is finished. But he understands he has to redeem Sita. Also, he has to kill Ravana. That's his coming into this world. So my request to Sugriva was not to bring her, but to find her. So hearing his, because it's not one by one, it's the whole long, and then Ram's response. He's abiding by Dharma. So Vali then seeks forgiveness of Ram. He said, what you've done, what you've said is correct. What you've done is correct. And I'm seeking forgiveness from you. That's a good lesson. Even if you've done something wrong, acknowledge it when it's pointed out, or you realized it, and you seek forgiveness. So then he has his parting words. He's gasping his final breaths. Ram consoles him. There's some very nice teachings if you're in a situation where you're in the presence of someone who's departing, what you might consider saying. Ram says it to Vali. Vali then passes on message to his son, to his wife, and to Sugriva. He advises Sugriva, take care of the kingdom, take care of my son like he's your son, and take care of Tara. It's his direct instruction from him or request from him. She's very wise. Listen carefully to any wise advice she gives. I made the mistake of not listening and look at my condition. So listen to her wise advice. And one of the parting gestures is he gives his necklace not to his son, but to Sugriva. In words saying, I've offended you for so many years together, and I've been sinful with your wife for so many years together. I'd like you to have this special necklace, one given to me by Indra, which is kind of surprising. So he was made king before, when it looked like, or everyone thought that Vali was gone. He's made king again, Sugriva. And just to conclude for this evening, we're going to go through kind of quickly the various services that he did. Again, a reminder that his relationship, Hanuman's relationship, is Dasya Rasa, his relationship, not only in this formal way, but it's his relationship. It's Sakya Rasa. No. Well, I made a mistake in the next slide, but that's life. So across the top, just don't read the what's at the bottom yet, please. What's across the top is just going to say his services. From the time he became king, what were the services? As the friend of Ram, what services did he do? He made a pledge to assist Ram. He lapsed in that pledge because of his sensual indulgence. He was reminded, and then he acted properly. Another important service is in the presence of Ramchandra, speaking about his confidence in Hanuman to find Sita. Because Ramchandra already had that idea, Leela-wise, he is a fit person to be my representative to find Sita, bring Sita back, or bring Sita, help rescue Sita. So his expression came just before Ram empowering Hanuman. When the Vanaras came back to Kishkinda, having found Sita, they were in this very celebrating, joyful, wild mood. And they went into a garden area, the special garden for the Kishkinda kingdom. And there was honey, and there were fruits, and they were going wild. And there was a person, Dundi Mukha, who was freaking out. They're ripping apart the trees and they're destroying the garden. So he went to Sugriva to complain. What should I do? Right away, Sugriva understood. They're in this celebrating mood. It means they found Sita. So let them go. Don't worry. It's okay. Another episode was his mistrust. We heard this several times. Repeated mistrust of Vibhishan. But finally, when he heard Ram's conclusions, he accepted Ram's conclusions. A little stuck, but he got unstuck just by hearing Ram, and he carried Ram's message. There's another very interesting exchange. We heard before that Vibhishan discovered Sukha and Shara, who were spies, and Ram forgave them. Then Sukha came again. Sukha came again as a bird or pigeon or something, and there was an explicit message to be carried from Ravana to Sugriva. And the message was, there's nothing between us. It's between me and Ram. And what's it to you that I've taken Sita anyways? So if you let's not have combat with one another. They discovered Sukha, and they started thrashing him. And Ram told them to stop. And then this other exchange went on. And he wanted to know, I'd like to carry a message back to Ravana. So here's what's cut and paste from Sugriva's message to Ravana. Ravana should be informed that I'm neither his friend nor his well-wisher. Indeed, he has formed an enmity with Ram, and thus my sworn enemy as well. For stealing Sita from Ram, the demon deserves death at my hands, and he shall receive it in due course. That was for the messenger. So that was a nice try on Ravana's part, but it didn't work. And here's some other services, and we're going to close after this. Shortly after they reached Lanka, Sugriva, before even a battle started, he saw Ravana standing on the ramparts of the palace, looking out to see what's out there, and he couldn't stand it. So he jumped up and he attacked Ravana and beat him. And he hurt Ravana. And then he jumped back to Suvela mountain, kind of impetuous. He personally was a great warrior. He had innumerable personal battles and defeated many, many persons. Praghasa is one. When Ram and Lakshman were laid low by Indrajit's, the serpent weapons, he was just devastated. I mean, others were, but he particularly is mentioned. When Ravana came out, Ravana hit him in the chest with an arrow. When Kumbhakarna came out, we heard this one. We saw some nice painting of it also. Kumbhakarna had the strategy. He wanted to get Sugriva and take him away from the Vanara army. So he knocked him out, knocked him unconscious, picked him up, and carried him inside the capital city. And Sugriva came to external consciousness and started a direct battle with Kumbhakarna. And here goes the ears and nose thing again. He bit off his ear and the end of his nose, and he clawed his side and hurt him badly, and then jumped back. So after Lakshman was cured, because this is not Ram and Lakshman were cured by herbs. It was Lakshman was cured by herbs. And it was at night. If you remember the paintings, it was at night. And Shushena administered the herbs to Lakshman. And it was his idea, and they did it. They attacked at night because they thought Lakshman was dead. And, we're victorious. So they're unprepared. So this is the time to attack. And they attacked. During the battle scenes, there's other demons that he did direct combat with. There's 4 that are mentioned: Kumbha, Nikumbha, Vipaksha, and Madhuparshva. Those persons not familiar with Ramayana don't know those names, but they're very powerful generals, and he finished them. When the battle was over, he pleaded with Ram to take all the Vanaras to Ayodhya to be participants in his coronation ceremony, and Ram obliged him, and Pushpaka got big enough to carry everybody. When they reached Ayodhya, Bharata has this celebrated saying to Sugriva, "You're like a 5th brother to us all, O Monkey King." And that's how he was treated, as a friend, as a peer, very dear to the royal family. And he was there to attend the coronation ceremony. And after the coronation ceremony, we don't hear about him further. He goes back to Kishkinda with all of the entourage, and we don't hear about Sugriva further. So that's the conclusion about Sugriva. And just a few comments, and we'll discuss. In Vaikuntha, we don't hear of Lord Narayan having brothers. We don't hear of Lord Narayan having a mother and father. We don't hear of Lord Narayan having children. We don't hear of Lord Narayan having friends. They're servants, it's on veneration. The kingdom of Ayodhya in the spiritual realm is part of Haridam. It's part of the Vaikuntha realm, but it's in the upper regions of Haridam. And there's very confidential, affectionate exchanges. That's unlike the mood of the rest of Vaikuntha. It's a very, very special place. Very, very special place. And Sugriva has an important, Sugriva and Vibhishan have important roles. One is a Vanara, and the other, at least, previously, Vanara and Rakshasa, at least by a company. Of course, Vibhishan wasn't a Rakshasa by birth. He was a pure person by birth, born of a qualified father, a Brahmana. But Ram takes and extends himself to anyone who takes shelter of him. And Sugriva did. In this the narration of surrender, it was facilitated by Hanuman. Because he just saw somebody out there that maybe he's a friend or a foe, who knows? Another trick of Vali. I don't trust him. But based upon his association with Hanuman and his direct dealings with Ramchandra, he became elevated, as did Vishwamitra, just through the association with Ram. It's really nice because these are examples of individuals that when the Lord performs his pastimes, they're not they're coming to the stage of perfection, and that's not where they're starting. But Ram is very kind and very expert, and he engages them accordingly. When Sugriva became forgetful, Ram was a stickler about it. He was very strong. He told Lakshman, remind him. Knowing Lakshman's nature, he said, don't intimidate him. And Lakshman, when he saw the lavish life he was living, he intimidated him. He just has this nature. He was like really heavy. And anyway, these various personalities are interplaying and tempering each other and reminding each other of the real standards. Still, they have their personalities, but the presence of Ramachandra keeps them straight. Yeah. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. I like the positioning of these lights a little better. I get to see you. When they were right in front of me, I could see those bright lights. Okay, we have a question over here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Does Sugriva ever get over in the whole Ramayana get over seeing Vibhishana as a demon and not toward Krishna, and his intentions were not toward Rama but toward the kingdom, Lanka?
Are you clear what your question is? Because I'm not.
Well, my question is, throughout the whole Ramayana, Sugriva keep having doubts in Vibhishana's true intentions.
Sugriva had doubts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does those doubts clear up by the end of Ramayana?
Oh yeah, they got cleared up. That's your question?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But he was not afraid to say, these are my doubts. I think Arjuna had doubts. And he raised the doubts, and Krishna addressed his doubts. Sugriva had his doubts. His doubts were in relation to the safety and well-being of Ram. And when Ram understood he cleared it. Don't doubt, in this way, that way. And he was also, as we heard, revealing his nature. He lives by principle, he lives by virtue, and he gave this example, that example, the other example of elevated persons that live by nature. He even gave, I didn't go into the detail, but a crow that gave shelter to a predator, an eagle, after killing his spouse. But because he was in danger for some reason, he gave him shelter. So, if the crow can do that, what about Ram? So he holds, so yes, he cleared Sugriva's doubts. And he had the power to fulfill his purpose. Your sister has a question?
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. I had a question. Doesn't Ahalya's punishment from Gautama seem a little worse than his punishment to Indra? Because Indra was the one who seduced Ahalya in the first place. Doesn't her punishment of staying as a rock, those many years, seem a little worse than Indra's?
I couldn't follow.
Indra's punishment is basically getting his testicles cut off because of their relationship between his and Ahalya's. And Ahalya gets the punishment of staying as a rock for a few years until Rama comes.
Yeah.
Doesn't her punishment seem a little worse than Indra's in a way from Gautama?
I see. Okay, I got it. Well, not really. Because look what Indra did. And after doing what Indra did he have control of his senses after he did what he did at getting a replacement set? He didn't learn his lesson. So kindness is, also Gotama knew his wife, and she just got carried away. She wasn't a predatorial type. She was just, taken advantage of. But she went along with it knowingly, because he knew that she went along with it knowingly. So the end result, they're back together, but she had learned a lesson, and her mind and senses were under control.
And
Because
she also met Rama.
So it was kind. Externally, it may look harsh or unfair, unequal to the wrong, which is what you're saying. But the end result was she can handle it. And, he didn't thrash her or beat her or dump her or something. He just corrected her and then gave her Ram's mercy. That's pretty good. Indra didn't get that. Indra got another set.
And this is completely unrelated, but how many sons does Indra have? In total? I don't really know. But
Say it again. I missed
how
it.
many sons does Indra have?
How many what?
Sons or children does Indra have?
How many children does Indra have?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Thank you, Maharaj.
That's an interesting question. Don't know.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I read the document where there's a description of why Lord Rama did not kill Vali in the first attempt.
Yeah.
And that was relating to Sugriva's disrespect towards Lakshmana by not offering him proper seat.
Well, that was one thing. There's many things, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. So whatever Lord Rama did, like by not killing Vali in the first attempt, did Sugriva understand that that was like a correction to him? So I failed to connect how Lord Rama corrected him and whether Sugriva understood the correction.
I was just reading something before coming over here this evening, and it was an appreciation that when Lakshman is discussing this point, I mean, it's a commentary. It's not Valmiki Ramayana statement, but he's so wonderful. He corrects things so gently. I mean, some things it's strong, but he corrects things so gently that persons that are dull may not even understand what's going on at the time. But as they become purified, then they can understand. And that Ram is one of his expertises. Now, uncultured people don't understand things that are gentle and subtle. And cultured people understand things that are gentle and subtle. And uncultured people can't understand them. They're dull. So Ram knows if somebody's cultured or not, or they're able to understand things that are subtle. But Lakshman was appreciating like that. Here's an example, and you've heard this one before because I've spoken on this point. I like this point. When they get to Panchavati, at the suggestion, recommendation of Agastya, spend your final year in Panchavati. They go, oh, this must be Panchavati. Look at how beautiful it is. It fits the description that Agastya gave. Lakshman, you pick a place that you think is suitable and make a cottage that you think is suitable for the three of us. Your needs, my needs, and Sita's needs. And it's subtle. So the commentary says, 13 years before, Lakshman said something that Ram didn't correct, but now he's correcting it. It was the I'm going to do consciousness. I'll do this and I'll do that and the other thing. The doership consciousness, Ram noted it, but he chose to not say anything at that time because, Lakshman was in this really emotional state. But now they're off and he's doing it in an indirect, very gentle and subtle way. And Lakshman understands it because he's a cultured person that understands subtlety. And that's when he makes the statement and says, my life is simply a servant of you. You tell me what you want and that's what I'll do. Ram appreciated, he caught it. So now, we're not cultured. And sometimes I find people are second guessing. When you said this or did that, was there some innuendo, some unspoken message that you wanted to convey? And people get into that sometimes. But he's the personality of Godhead. So there's potency with what he says and does, and he knows the person who he's speaking to and dealing with and how they can handle it. So whether Sugriva understood he was being corrected by receiving the garland from Lakshman and bowing down before Lakshman to receive the garland or not, he bowed down before Lakshman, which had the net effect of minimizing, if not nullifying, the offense. But it's a subtle point. And there's multiple other points besides that one point factoring into why he didn't kill Bali the first time. I really like Govindaraj's explanation. You read that one also, right? The final page. I don't need to say it. When there's two family members and there's a dispute between two family members, and one of the two family members has got this heavy, get that guy or person, because it gets intense. And then later, they don't have that same feeling. But if something bad happens to their family member, they feel guilty that I was ill wishing them and this bad thing happened. So Ram, knowing that happens, didn't kill Bali the first time, because later there would be, the regret. And there was a regret after he was killed. He was feeling really badly. I've arranged this, relationship with you, and you would kill him, and now he's dead. I'm a bad person. It's understanding human nature. That's one of the reasons why Ram didn't kill him the first time. You read it, right? Go over it again. Go over it again. Because as in life, there's multiple factors operating when something is done or not done, or decisions are taken.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj. I had two questions. It's interesting that your comment in relation to Lakshman was pretty much very similar thing I was thinking in my head for my second questions. So let me start with the first one. So in the spirit of hating the sin, not the sinner.
Yes.
We clearly label, here is a Deva and here is a Asura. So we are kind of broadly seeing their overall nature, and therefore we are fitting them into those roles. But some of the behavioral conducts of Indra were actually worse than demons.
Oh, yeah.
Like when he wanted to wipe out the entire Vrajabhumi with all the inhabitants and everyone. And likewise, in this case, his highly lustful behavior. So they are kind of symptomatic of a demoniac behavior. So when we talk about these pastimes, the idea is that we are, is it okay to say that, okay, this is demoniac conduct?
Yes.
Of a...
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. She is the wife of a Brahmin. She's the wife of an extremely elevated Brahmin. And by trickery, he exploits her. It's mania. So the behavior is abominable.
So the roles of Sura and Asura seems to be kind of a function of a time when they are behaving, when they are exhibiting those Sura characteristics. In other words, when we look at in our life also, we go through phases where when we are properly connected with the scriptures and with what we are hearing, then we would be manifesting sort of devotional characteristic, and other times we may be acting demoniacally. So what I'm trying to say is that when we think about who is demon, who is demigod, that seems to be very very broad. Like, although like the roles kind of can be very much a function of what they're doing at a given time.
You're making something that can be thought of in a simple manner complicated unnecessarily. Listen to Prabhupada and he makes it very simple. There's no harm doing what you're doing, but the simple basis is one who accepts the authority of the personality of Godhead. That's a demigod. That's Sura. And those that defy, that's Asura. It's the consciousness, a regard towards the Supreme Person, Sura and Asura. And so someone that's in their heart, by their very nature and in life's dedication, they're dedicated to the personality of Godhead, and they may do some abominable things in times of weakness or whatever. I can't remember who it was. It was a young person. I don't remember if it was your daughter or not. There was some question about, Indra does these bad things. Maybe the wrong person was appointed to be Indra. And my reply was, when you have opulence, there's a greater tendency to become proud. And he's the most opulent. I mean, he's not the treasure of heaven, but he's the king of heaven. He's above the treasure of heaven. And power, like this question earlier today about power and so forth, and everything. So but his heart's not pure, because if his heart was pure, he'd be in the spiritual world. He wouldn't be in the heavenly realm. So he's in the heavenly realm with material desire to be a controller, but he's pious and he has all this unlimited. So it's going to happen. That whoever's in that post, it's going to happen. We put somebody else in, it's going to happen, because maybe less or more, but pride is bound to be there. And when pride is there, then hurtful things are done. That's what Narada says in reflecting about Nala Kuvera and Manigriva. So they should be deprived of their opulence. Take away the cause of their pride. So what Krishna does with Indra, is he took away his pride. He at least for a while, his pride was smashed. It doesn't mean it won't creep up again, because his heart's not pure yet, but his pride is smashed. And look at it from the other side. The other side is Vishnu always protects him. He sometimes chastises him, but even when he chastises him, he still gives him a means to, facilitate bringing things back to a balance because the demigods are important people to rule and keep the universe in order. So he is being more kind than you, Vishnu. He knows what's right and wrong, and he knows what yes. So the behavior and the heart are different. His heart is with Vishnu, is a loyal servant and qualified servant of Vishnu, and there's pride. So he checks his pride, and with the pride comes this bad behavior, and pride and lust, and with the beginning. Was it Canto 6, Chapter 2? There are 3 or 4 verses that are describing the process of creation, and destructive forces are created by Vishnu. And persons who are not with Vishnu become influenced by those destructive forces. And then in the story, it's the story of Dhruva. And it's describing the story of Dhruva. That in comes his stepmother, and she's influenced by one of those destructive forces, and she does destructive things. So Indra is not free from the bad behavior, but his heart is oriented towards Vishnu. And he gets corrected. He gets slapped around, but he gets corrected. Apichet Sudaracharo.
I have one more question.
Okay.
So this is again on the topic of the Shakti or the power of the Supreme Lord. So in spite of having the Shakti, the Supreme Lord purposefully becomes dependent on his devotees just so that they can get some service, some opportunity for purification, some growth. So on the part of the devotee,
It's not exactly he becomes dependent, but he acts in such a way that they can do some service.
yes,
He's independent all the while.
yes.
Okay.
And so on the part of the devotee, it's a great opportunity to also, if the consciousness is not proper, to kind of
Mess up.
to become basically the doer. That doership mentality can creep in because the Supreme Lord is acting in such a way that he is as if dependent. So what are some protection that we should be meditating on for freeing ourselves from
Well,
the doership
in the
mentality?
process of surrender, one of the qualifications of the surrendering person is I have no other shelter. And when that consciousness is genuinely there, then you're acknowledging what the qualifications of the Sharanagata, the person who is worthy of shelter. So, faith and knowledge are protections. It's not a guarantee, but it's a protection. And the ultimate protection is bhakti. And for the bhakta, then they have knowledge and detachment. But until we get there, faith and knowledge are very helpful. And having good friends who can tap you on the shoulder and say, you become forgetful again. And then we say thank you instead of saying something else. Okay. One more question. Do we have something online? Yes? Okay, good.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is from the morning session. You were telling that
Louder.
okay, you were explaining to one answer like how Muchukunda
How Muchukunda,
he had to take a birth again the second time. I was just wondering why, because he sees Lord Krishna face to face, and when just Krishna's glance is when a soul receives Krishna's glance, right, all his sins are just burnt away, right? And still Krishna says, no, you need to take one more birth and as a Brahmana and then get purified. So I was just wondering why.
all the details of what you're saying is not so audible, but I have an answer anyways.
Okay.
Because I've thought about this. There's reasons why he should be given mercy. There must be a reason why he's not going straight after this lifetime to the spiritual world. And that my feeling, not scriptural confirmed response, there must be some service that Krishna wants from him. And he's going to give him an opportunity for some service over there instead of over here. So fantastic. Some service. That's what the devotee wants, is some service, whether it's here or there. That's my understanding. I did some further research with the writings of our acharyas to see if there's some explanation. and I couldn't find anything.
Thank you, Maharaj. I have one more question. Does the
You got to
process
speak a little louder.
does the process of surrendering gets harder and harder as the years pass by, or is it just the consciousness of the person who's experiencing hardship? I mean to say, like, does the wager get higher and higher as more purification happens?
I can't follow.
Does it become harder to surrender as we get more purified, or does it?
No, the challenges become more intense, but you have greater capacity to meet those challenges that become more intense. When you're younger or less mature in spiritual life, the challenge are proportionate to what you can handle. There's a very nice purport in in relation to Bali Maharaj and the test that he underwent. And Prabhupada says something that Krishna never gives one a difficulty greater than one can handle. And he gives one the strength to deal with that difficulty. So the difficulties become greater, but the capacity is already greater because of further advancement. It's just he's gently weaning one into full surrender when you're not there yet. And when you're more surrendered, you can handle more challenges, more difficulty, more everything, like what Prabhupada did. He said, I didn't hear it, I heard from those who heard it, you would not even have been able to survive had you to undergo what I underwent in the beginning days in New York. It was very severe. So, but he handled it. It was very severe. But he had the capacity. And he felt Krishna's protection always. And that a spiritual master was with him always. So, capacity increases. And challenges may increase too. Next, online.
We're going
Thank you,
online.
Maharaj.
Go ahead, online.
Maharaj, we have 2 questions from Ramsharan Prabhu. Did Sandipani Muni also not know that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
Yes, he did not know.
Okay. Did he realize at the point where Krishna restored his lost child?
It doesn't say. He understood he wasn't ordinary, but what he did understand, we don't know. I don't know. I don't know of any commentary that says he understood. He understood he wasn't ordinary, but whether he understood he was the personality of Godhead or not. Even asking him the question, can you bring back my lost son? That's a pretty extraordinary request. But, he just could have been lost somewhere. But, sure enough. And Devaki and her first 6 children. Piece of cake. No? Next.
This is from the earlier classes. What is the distinction among Rati versus Rasa versus Bhava?
What's the distinction between what and Rati?
Rati, Rasa, and Bhava.
Rati and Bhava are usually interchangeable terms. They're indicating something slightly different, but it's a stage of bhakti. They're used interchangeably commonly. And rasa just means taste. Strawberry, chocolate, vanilla, and it's taste, flavor.
This is from Snehavali Mataji. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Lord Rama killed Vali because he cohabited with Sugriva's wife.
Yes.
My question is, are animals covered under the codes of dharma? Animals can cohabit with many partners. Why would Vali be punished for animal behavior?
Well, this comes a whole discussion of what's a vanara. And they're neither this nor that. They're not monkeys. They're not humans. They're Vanaras. What's a Vanara? Well, it's not a monkey. It's not a human. Okay, that's what they're not. What are they? It's not clear what they are. So in some cases, they're held to. In some cases, they're not held to. Human conduct. Just like, Vali, as bad as Vali was, there he is doing his morning rituals. And so forth. And they're held by codes. The category is a unique category. And he was held to such a standard of cohabiting with a younger brother's wife. It's just a Vedic injunction, and it's sinful. So we're held to it as a Vanara.
The next question is, thank you, Guru Maharaj, for narrating the pastime so wonderfully. Why would King Jennika plow the field as a farmer would?
Oh, it's just one of those Vedic cultural things. Kings would step out of their kingly role when it came time for a yajna, and they would plow the field. For where the yajna was being done, they would personally take that humble role on behalf of the Supreme Lord, like a servant of the Supreme Lord. He wasn't, an agriculturalist or a farmer. He's a king preparing for a yajna. And it was a standard procedure. Now, how that is given, and we don't, I don't know those details. We don't do those things these days. But in those days, it was what kings would do. They wouldn't just have the guy over there, can you go plow the field? We're going to have a yajna. He'd go plow the field for the yajna. That was the procedure. Next.
This is the last one, Guru Maharaj. How come Lord Rama and Srimati Sita Devi marry at such...
How can Lord Rama do what?
How come Lord Rama and Sita Devi got married at such an early age?
That was the Vedic system.
In that yuga, the normal age was 10,000 years lifetime.
No. It's just, you can't go by that. They got married when they were young. That's it.
We're done.
Hey.
Hare Krishna. My question.
You can speak right into the microphone, I'm sure. Thank you.
When Vali was trying to make excuses and at the same time trying to insult Lord Rama, when people do that when people do the same thing to ourselves, how do we deal with that?
Oh, I've answered this question before. And the answer I gave you before was you smile. Remember that question? Remember the answer? Okay. That's what you do. And then your father can help coach you on, you can hate the sin, but not the sinner. The behavior isn't nice, but that the person that's doing this bad behavior, it's not going to hurt you. Unless you think that you're your body or you're your mind, and those things, that's what's important to you is your body and your mind. And what you aren't is what's important to you. Then you're going to be disturbed. Now she gets it. Okay. You done? We'll make this our last question for the evening.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So my question is, when we hear some topics like this of Ramayana, in my case, there is this conventional tendency comes that I know the story. Sometimes I don't put 100% in enthusiasm or thing like that I hear when I hear for the first time something. So what are the few things that I should practice that whenever that I hear the same thing again, that I should dwell into it, that mode?
It depends. If something is repeated again and again, it probably means it's important. And if it's important, then when you heard the first time or two or three or five or 10 or whatever, you probably didn't hear everything, because that's why it's being said again and again. One of the things, for example, when Prabhupada would do, and how do you handle classes when Prabhupada is making the same point again and again? So you go inside and say, this must be important. And he's the compassionate person, and he understands his audience, me, us, and he wants us to be lifted. So that's why he's saying something again and again. And we're not getting it, because we're tuned out looking for something new. If you're looking for something new, then you're not going to get things that are really important. So that's one answer, or one approach. What should you do? You understand it's being repeated is important. Another is taste. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would hear, it's described in Chaitanya Bhagavat, the stories of Dhruva and Prahlad again and again 100 times. And at the end, he'd say it again, because of taste. So seek the higher taste. The higher taste is that which is in the spiritual dimension. Seek the higher taste. And then it won't become, I've heard it before, what's new? It's the taste. And it's not just repetitive. You've probably heard me say this. The example that's often given is making sandalwood paste. You know that example? It's just a very, very simple circular motion, three things: a flat stone, piece of sandalwood, and a little water, and you do like this. And by doing it again and again and again and again, the fragrance of the sandalwood comes out. And the coolness of the sandalwood comes out just by doing it again and again and again. It's the same simple circular motion with your hand. But it makes something very nice. And the Bhagavatam, or spiritual topics, are meant to be heard again and again. And then the fragrance or the sweetness, the savoring of the subject comes. So if you understand that's what is meant by spiritual practice, then you're not just looking for something new, you're looking for that sweetness, or that's something that's very special within spiritual sound vibration. Like mantra. Young people will often say, how's it going? Boring. I mean, that's a common phrase these days. Okay, got it? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Krishna, especially kids, all kids, if you can please listen to me very carefully, okay? So right from now, there's a lot of work going on the community hall for tomorrow's engagement over here, okay? So please, please, please restrain yourself not to go to community hall side or any side of the kitchen. Use the bathrooms over here. And if anything, be in this temple room, okay? So no moving out, in and out from the corridor, okay? That is number one. So devotees who did not honor prasad, probably in the 5:30 to 6:30 time slot. So we are serving in this corridor here near the desktop here, registration desk. So we can honor, it's a wonderful prasad left out, and ensure that, or if you cannot finish, please take it out. So we do not have any room to store here now, okay? That is one. And third major thing, tomorrow, please everyone to focus here for tomorrow. The session starts at 7:30 until 10:15. In temple room here, there will be certain work going on prior to our sessions and post our sessions. So by 10:15, Maharaj, we will be trying to conclude. So it will be from 7:30 to 10:15, there will be a break of 5 to 10 minutes, okay, where we'll be serving something like fresh tea or something outside and then come back. And fourth point is, we are not honoring prasad over here. We'll see the situation tomorrow. The best way is to take the to-go boxes, okay? So who wants to have to-go boxes, please do let me know once we serve prasad there, okay? Exact number, and apology for this. This was planned like a year back for tomorrow's date for the engagement, okay? Any questions I can answer? Yeah. Yeah, the fifth major point is, as Maharaj said, we did not conclude this personalities of Ramayana within this what we planned for tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening. So that is not a conclusion for tomorrow evening session. That will continue evening sessions from Monday through Thursday next week. We'll see how that pace goes, or it may also continue to the following week. So the way we are churning the nectar, as the previous question happened, we should try to listen to the details, okay? And one last thing, as Mataji said, you can access the evening sessions with the same link what we are showing for the Zoom recordings and also for the live sessions, okay? Yeah, one question here, tell me.
We'll have dinner.
Open it. Yeah, you'll be eating only in there only, not in the temple hall. So wear your jackets properly and behave there outside, okay? Hare Krishna. Online devotees, please note the timings for tomorrow, 7:30 in the morning, and it will be continuous with a 10-minute break. Hare Krishna.